Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Forgione again, back with another AP Micro lecture. This is probably going to be our last one in terms of new stuff. There may be one other thing I need to go over in terms of marginal benefit. I can't remember if I've covered that or not, but that's a real short one that I can drop in whenever. Won't take long for you guys to pick up on that. But I want to talk real quickly today about non-competitive labor markets, okay? And a non-competitive labor market is what we call a monopsony. Okay, a monopsony. Monopsony is a market where there's usually only one supplier of labor in a given area. There's not a whole lot of great examples of this left, but one that I always kind of joke about is in Snowshoe Mountain, West Virginia. My senior year of college for spring break, for whatever reason, University of Florida that year had spring break starting the last week in February. Don't ask, I have no idea. So we decided, me and my buddies were always pretty broke. We decided that to save money, instead of going to the beach, going somewhere in the Caribbean, whatever, which we could never afford anyway, we decided we're going to go to Snowshoe. On one of these things, it was not Living Social or Groupon, but one of the things that predated all of those. We got this deal. We got 10 of us in big cabin up there, and for 4 days of ski lift passes and 4 nights in the cabin, it was $170 a person, which even going back to 2002 was a pretty great deal. So we get up there, and come to find out, this is the only, I'd never been there, I didn't know this, but it's the only civilization basically in the whole area. The only employer is this resort at Snowshoe Mountain, the ski resort. That's it. There's nothing really else around, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a big deal at all, except when you're an idiot like me, and I'd never been skiing before, but I'm like, how hard can it be to pick up, right? So if you've heard this story before, if I've told this before, forgive me. But basically, I am going down the mountain. I realize, I see all these people that are slowing down to make this tight left turn. And I'm like, I'm fine, I've got it. And I turn and I go, oh no, I see why they did that, because there's another right turn right there, and there's just woods and a drop off down here. So I do everything that they teach you in the little lesson. I'm doing pizza slice, not working. I'm doing the little side to side to slow down, not working. And so my idiot brain goes, well, in the Olympics they do that little like side shuffle, right? That's how they stop there for the downhill skier. It works in the Olympics. Got to work for Fat Boy here. So I do that. My skis catch. I go flying. I don't mean like, I had a nice little tumble. I get airborne and I face plant into a bunch of snow and ice. I get up and I realize something is wrong with my arm over here. I can't really grip the ski pole or anything. We get down to the bottom. I get down to the bottom and I go to the medic. And the medic is not a doctor. It's this dude that's probably 20 years old that looked like he smoked his lunch. And he's like, I can try to pop it back in or whatever. And I was like, nah, we're good. So I call my buddies. My buddies have to take me to a doctor to obviously get my shoulder popped back in and all that. The problem is there's no doctors in that area. We have to drive about 45 minutes or so to get to a doctor, because in that whole town, that whole area, there is no medical facility. The only employer in that town is the ski resort. That's it. So that would be an example of a monopsony. There's a lot of small towns where you still see this in play in some areas. Okay, so if we're drawing a monopsony graph, it's going to look like a monopoly profit graph, but in reverse. So we're going to start off, we've got the demand for labor, which from last time you should know, the demand for labor in a competitive market equals your marginal revenue product of labor, or how much money a worker can make for you as a company owner. We've got our supply of labor, but now we're going to add a third one in here. And this third one is going to intersect, or bisect, I should say, between the supply curve and the vertical axis. And this is going to be what we call our MFC, or our marginal factor cost. Now, here's what marginal factor cost actually means. It's the true cost of hiring a new worker. So let's pretend for a second, let's say that I've got 3 workers in this monopsony right now, that I've got Keelan and I've got Cameron, and I've got Michael, okay? And I'm paying right now, each of the three of them, let's say I'm paying them $14 a piece, okay? So they're doing well, everything's good, but I'm realizing, you know what, I could really use another worker. And so now I decide, okay, you know what, I need another worker, I'm gonna go hire Jacob. Well, Jacob goes, you know what, I could work for you, but you know, things are pretty good for me right now. I've got a scholarship to go to school. I've got a girlfriend that pays all the bills. I don't really need to go work for you right now, Mr. Forgione. So I said, oh, all right. Well, what do I do? I really want to get this person, and you know, I really want to get Jacob in here to work. So I said, well, you know what? Instead of $14 an hour, what if I give you $17 an hour? Well, now this is kind of persuasive to Jake, and goes, I don't really need the job, but okay, $17 an hour, that's pretty solid. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take you up on that. Now here's the problem: supply of labor, that's $17 an hour for Jacob, but that's not the true cost. See, the true cost is going to be higher because you think Keelan's going to be okay with that. If Keelan's worked here the last 2 years, she's going to be good with, oh yeah, give the newbie $3 an hour more than I'm making. You think that Michael or Cameron are going to be okay with newbie making more than them? Probably not. So the true cost, the marginal factor cost here, is going to be whatever I've got to pay the newbie, in this case $17 an hour, plus a $3 raise for each of the other workers to get them up to what I'm paying this newest worker. So now the true cost is going to be 17 plus 3 plus 3. So this is Keelan's 3, this is Cameron's 3, this is Michael's 3. Okay, 17 plus 9 is going to be $26. That's the marginal factor cost there. Supply of labor is just what did it cost to hire just Jacob, which is 17. But the true cost, the marginal factor cost, that's going to be 26 because I got to pay raises to the other 3 workers. Okay, so that's the MFC, and that's why it's higher than the supply curve. So you may say, all right, that's cool, I get that. Why do I care? What is all this telling me? Well, basically what this is going to tell you is, number one, where are we at on if we were looking at this from a competitive standpoint? Well, a competitive market, we showed last time, always produces where supply and demand meet. So there's our competitive quantity of workers hired. Okay, so I'm going to put QC, but it's the number of workers that we're hiring. This is the competitive wage that they are paying. Okay, so there's the workers, there's the competitive wage. However, because we're now in a monopsony, we're going to go where the MFC intersects the demand curve, and this is going to be the quantity of workers that we pay or that we hire in a monopsony. So what you should notice here is that the monopsony actually hires fewer workers than a competitive market would. And that makes sense to an extent because a competitive market, you got lots of firms hiring. Monopsony, you got one firm hiring. So it's likely that they're going to hire fewer workers than what we would see in a competitive market. Here's where it gets a little tricky. Normally we just go, oh, that's equilibrium, we go over here, there's the wage, right? Do you think a monopsony firm is going to pay higher wages than competitive? No. What they're going to do instead, you're going to go from here, you're going to go down to the supply curve, and then go over, and that is the wage that a monopsony wants to pay. Now, there is one thing that may prevent the monopsony from being able to charge that, or pay rather, that lower wage, and that is unions, okay? Unions actually are going to agree with monopsonies on one thing. They're going to agree with monopsonies on this lower amount of workers being hired. The reason being, unions want fewer workers and to pay those workers a higher wage. Unions do not want non-union workers to be hired at all. If you ever get a chance, if you're studying economics in college and this interests you at all, take a look at up north, particularly New York, New Jersey, the fire departments, police departments, how much of that is union run. It's pretty amazing, actually. I've got a cousin that is, his son has been trying for a while to get into the fire department, and because it's so union-based, and they only want union members and children of union members to get into that, he's having to go a different route to basically go to EMT school first and try to get in as an EMT and then transfer over. So it's a really interesting sort of scenario there. The unions, though, what they want is a higher wage than competitive. So unions want the same quantity as a monopsony, which is lower than competitive, but they want to pay a much higher wage than a competitive wage and way higher than monopsony. So the question is, all right, well, that's what the unions want. That's what we see in competitive markets. This is what monopsonies want. So which of these two get it? Does the union get it or does the monopsony get it? Well, it depends on the strength of their negotiations, okay? It basically depends on how strong their negotiations are. Down here in the South, typically, unions are not usually as strong as in a lot of other places. By comparison, up north, to a certain extent, I would say the Northwest and Northeast, those are areas where the unions tend to be a lot stronger, and so they may have more power on something like this, and you may see the wage get higher, closer to where the unions want it. Down here, I think you're probably going to get closer to where the monopsonies want it. Okay, I'm going to leave off there. If you have questions for me, again, please drop them in the comments or on Classroom or email. However I can help, I would love to be able to help you guys. I miss you all and hope to see you soon.